Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into another DLC. But before we get started, if you like military strategy, tactics, or doctrine and seeing it applied to strategy games, this is definitely the channel for you, so make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And there's a Patreon down below with after action reports, so make sure you check that out. If that's something you enjoy, it's absolutely free and you can support the channel. So let's get started. This DLC we're going to talk about is fantastic for beginners, and it's one I highly recommend, especially if you're a fan of both modern warfare and the Iran-Iraq war, because you get to play with both T-62s and chieftains. So overall, it's a joy and a complete blast to play. It's also relatively smaller battles, something that's definitely new player friendly. But let's talk about the horrors and atrocity of wars first, and let's dive right on into this. Since it's the Iran-Iraq conflict, this battle lasted over 8 years, and both sides incurred over 500,000 casualties. In fact, that conflict's been much related to World War I, just because of the static nature of it, the trench warfare, the defensive lines, miles of barbed wire, machine gun fortified positions, bayonet charges, and the Iraqi use of chemical warfare, which, in fact, is one of the reasons why we have possibly poor relationships with Iran, but this isn't a political science channel, so we're not going to dive too much into that. So, while those tactics did happen during the war, it did cause a stalemate, and eventually the war came to an end due to those economic devastation, decreased morale, and the use of WMDs by Iraq. So with that brief introduction over with, I'm going to tell you what this DLC is. It's Operation Victory. As you can see, we have BDRMs, more modern warfare style, even though Graviteam's known for its World War II combat. So it consists of really a 6 and 5 turn DLC. You can play from either side, so around 4 operations, 2 on the Iraq, 2 on the Iranian. It's precisely recreated Middle Eastern rivers, over 70 square kilometers, lots of water crossing points, which are the bane of tactical commanders. While they sound relatively pointless, they are extremely difficult to navigate and something all war gamers should understand how to do, especially if they want to increase their immersion. All right. Players will get to use a variety of weapons. That's actually one of my favorite things about this. We get to use T-62s and chieftains. There's really no thermal optics in this game, which overall is a bummer that ATGM is going to miss. That's unfortunate. And that brings us to another point, is the extreme lethality of this game. It's really going to challenge both new players and experienced players. As you can see, that's because players are introduced to those new highly lethal weapons, since they're much smaller engagements. So you're going to have high explosive armor penetrating rounds, all of these. ATGMs, as you can see, another ATGM is flying across the screen in the distance. Super lethal, super effective at destroying all types of armored units. You have mortars, lots of indirect and IDF fire, or indirect fire and accurate fire. BDRMs, T-62s. Personally, the smaller engagements are fantastic for new players. You generally operate at standoff ranges, something you're not seeing here because we are pretty much fully engrossed in the battle. We have some indirect fire coming in. Standoff range is typically the preferred distance to work at, especially in this type of conflict. What that means is you'll generally be out of range of the opponent's or Op4's lethality, so all their ATGMs, things like that, you'll be out of range for that. But you can continue to operate within your own range and continue to suppress or eliminate the enemy. So that's one thing new players will be able to master as they play through this DLC. Personally, the map, we're going to do a quick little overview. I'm not the biggest fan of this map. As you can see, lots of... That T-62 just got hit by that ATGM. I'm not the biggest fan of this map. As you can see, there's lots of water crossing points. Over here, there are small little trenches. There are no urban areas. In fact, the urban areas are a bit disappointing. And if you know me and you know my channel, that's one of the things this channel is pretty much founded upon, is both urban combat and urban tactics, so it's kind of a bummer. So if that's your aspect, I wouldn't recommend this DLC. Quite disappointing, but in the end, it's actually quite fantastic for new players. It allows them to build upon skills like how to use indirect fire, how to call in artillery strikes, how to manage resources, all in a relatively small contained area, with the increased lethality creating an additional challenge for new players. Players are rewarded for the correct tactical decisions. However, they make the wrong decision, they are able to recover quickly, but they're going to be punished severely. As you can see, we just called in a massive artillery strike on that position. And if you saw over there on the north side of the map, or the east side, we did get completely decimated by the Iranian, possibly chieftains and T-62s in this general vicinity, which is unfortunate for our units. But overall, it's fun. Relatively short engagements, not like the 40-minute long World War II engagements with lots of troop management. Eventually, all these skills are going to add up. All these skills, tactics, and knowledge are going to add up and build upon a new player's foundation. What I mean by that is you're not going to micro so much. You're just managing your standoff distance. You're learning how to effectively use ATGMs, how to effectively use anti-aircraft guns, tanks, T-62s, managing both ammo count, resource count, and what you're picking the fight you're engaging in, right? So over here, we should not have engaged in this really mechanized infantry or like tank-on-tank combat. These BDRMs were poorly placed. They're not dug in. They have ATGMs possibly wasted. We have T-62s that are just sitting there burning because they weren't at the correct standoff ranges, which is unfortunate and poor planning on our part. But as you can see, this battle was relatively quick, and that's actually fantastic for new players who are just trying to dive in and learn how to play the game. So we can continue to build on those. The extremely small lethal engagements force them to manage their resources, skills. These skills can be applied to the larger World War II DLCs, and I stand by that statement. Some of the large World War II DLC battles are absolutely massive. They consist of 30, 40, we're getting counter artillery right now. Battalion groups, hundreds of units. It's absolutely takes time. It's hard to learn. You need to manage all your troops. There's really what's the benefit of the World War II combat is the reduced lethality of it all. It's more troop management, resource management on a larger, more macro scale. Whereas players who play Operation Victory, if I haven't mentioned that yet, are going to have a lot of fun playing at a really micro level, managing standoff distance, ranges like that. Overall, I highly suggest it. It's one of the newer DLCs. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like to buy the older content because they're unsure of the quality. So if you're a new player and you're not a big fan of older content or older DLCs, I highly suggest Operation Victory. It is a bit more expensive, but as you can see, it's a ton of fun to play. Quick in and out engagements. You can use it in the battle editor, put all these tanks and vehicles on World War II maps, and overall learn the game. Have a wonderful day. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe.